once you start actually thinking, you will realize that you've never thought before. It's almost as though you spent your life thinking that you're walking, and you realize suddenly that you've been crawling the whole time. And when you actually stand up on 2 feet, you realize, oh, this is what walking is. I know for me personally, my entire schooling was teachers telling me what to think. In other words, like, here's some facts about the world, like putting data into a computer, data into my mind. Here's some facts about the world, memorize them, tell me what I told you. And then later, when, let's say, if I was learning biology, I'm learning all these facts about biology from my teacher, I try to be a biologist, my entire thinking process is referencing back, what did my teacher tell me? And basing all of the thinking on referencing back to the information that I was told. That also isn't thinking. It's not thinking. That's all we did. It's like, again, putting data into a computer. I had a conversation with ChatGPT about this. I was actually like talking back and forth with it. How do you think? What is your mechanism of thinking? What is the sequence that it goes through? And I'll read to you what it said. ChatGPT said, "My creativity is based on patterns and examples from my training data. I don't have the capacity for organic creative thinking in the same way humans do. My responses might seem creative or original, but they are derived from the recombination of learned patterns rather than genuine independent innovation." In other words, AI only references data. And it's really good at it. It's really fucking good at it. It's way better than we are. But what it can't do is think. Okay? So referencing is not thinking, in the same way that, if you get into a discussion with somebody that has a fundamentalist religious upbringing, the way that they will describe spirituality and God is, the Bible says this, Jesus said this, my church says this. They're only referencing, they're not thinking. If you talk to a young entrepreneur who's like, well, Hormozy said this, or who's another business teacher? I don't follow this shit anymore. It's another. Russell Brunson. Russell Brunson says you need to like funnel hack. So I'm going to funnel hack, again, referencing what are other people doing? Let me model that. There's no thinking. We said last year, if you're not thinking for yourself, you're not actually thinking, you're just referencing the thoughts of others. It's, okay, what did Taylor say about this 3 years ago? Now that's what I think about it. That, again, is not thinking. So I'll put it this way. Thinking could be considered the most widely outsourced activity humans do. We're outsourcing our thinking. When we think about original thinkers, much of the world and the ideas of the world, the opinions of the world, are sourced from a few people who executed on original thought. And what I'll say to you is, don't think what those people thought, think how they thought. Okay, don't think what they thought, think how they thought. So I'll offer you a model of a way of thinking about thinking. What thinking is, fundamentally, if you break it down to the mechanics, in the same way that walking is putting one foot in front of the other while coordinating movements with your arms, what thinking is deconstruction and reconstruction. Deconstruction and reconstruction, that's the act of thought. That's what it looks like. And so, as an example, we talked about Elon. When there's this old story about Elon pre-SpaceX. He's with a friend coming back from like a weekend away. They're driving across the Brooklyn Bridge, talking about how great it would be to like create rockets that sent humanity to Mars. And Elon and his friend, their first thought was, well, rockets are really expensive, so I don't think there's anything an individual person can do. There's government-funded programs, NASA, billions, potentially trillions of dollars. How could an individual do that? That's his first thought. Then his next thought, which is the deconstruction point, okay, what are rockets? Like, what is a rocket actually made of? Because it is expensive for those programs, but maybe it doesn't have to be. Well, rockets are metal and fuel. Those things aren't that expensive. Elon's got, 100 mil in the bank, whatever, after PayPal. He's like, okay, metal and fuel, engineers, you have to pay to create them. What's the biggest cost of sending a rocket up? Well, a huge cost is the fact that rockets traditionally couldn't be reused. As soon as they blast them off, they fundamentally damage the rocket and can't reuse it. And they can't land rockets. So Elon starts thinking about this. Okay, he's deconstructed the components. What do rockets actually cost to make? Where can we source the materials? Not just accepting, oh, it's too expensive, I can't do it. Deconstructing it. The reconstruction is, how could I source these materials in such a way that made them cost effective, like actually could sustain the business? And then how can we get past that problem of rockets can't land? Well, let's make rockets that we can land. And so SpaceX ends up being born out of this process of deconstructing the old paradigm and reconstructing a new one that's more functional, more streamlined, more cost effective. And he's like taking over the fucking world with it. Same thing with Tesla and with his other ventures. It's a process of like, okay, how has this been done before? That's where referencing ends. How has this been done before? What are other people doing? What have other people said about it? Deconstruction means breaking it down into its component parts and seeing them for what they are, and then reconstructing something better. That's original thinking. And you can see that any true creativity, again, we were saying this, all creativity, genuine creativity, creating something new, all innovation depends entirely on that process. You can't be innovative or truly creative, original, without deconstructing and reconstructing. It can't happen. Otherwise, you're just making versions of what's been made before. Does that make sense? So it's the difference between, a chef who follows recipes and a chef at a Michelin star restaurant who is looking at all the possible ingredients and permutations and combinations of those ingredients. How do they go together, and creating something brand new that's just like out of nowhere wild. One more example, the funnel hacking guys. The funnel hacking is literally just referencing. Does everybody know what funnel hacking is? Those who have like ventured into the business world might. Funnel hacking is this term popularized by Russell Brunson, right? Was he the first to do that? Funnel hacking is just look at what other successful, because you don't know if someone's successful or not. And I'll share a story about that. Look what other successful people are doing and then copy it. That's the technique that he's teaching. And it's purely referential. He's not teaching how to think about marketing. He's teaching how to copy other people's marketing. You can't reference and be successful long-term, not like in a big way. We've all probably had the experience of like a classmate in school that does all of their homework, that studies really hard, that seems really smart, gets straight A's, and they can't think. They're actually further behind. Like they might be considered intelligent by the standards of society, but by the standards that we're talking about now, they're actually, it's like 0% on the test. They were only through all of that study, all of that work, all of the paying attention to the teacher, trying to do well through no fault of their own, because it's the only way that they were ever taught. They're actually further behind. And then the kid in the back of the class who's cracking jokes, causing problems, getting D's on his paper, goes and starts a multi-million-dollar company. I think it's William James who said that genius is nothing more than perceiving reality in an unhabitual way. That, in other words, is seeing reality, deconstructing and reconstructing independently of the habits of our mind and the minds of others that have influenced our mind. So what has everybody told me before? Casting that aside, and what is this? It's unhabitual. It's like on a moment-to-moment basis doing it new. And just to like double underline that it's a trainable skill, I'm of the opinion that like anybody who is serious about this work should be actively training that skill to, again, like a precision instrument that can cut through problems, that can make decisions clearly, that isn't impacted by biases, that can just see things as they are. And Like that's 100% possible for everybody in this room. Absolutely. It's 100% possible, independent of intelligence. Thinking is a skill. Intelligence is like a natural quality, but intelligence routed towards referential thinking, like the student that can only take notes, you know, they never develop the skill. So treat it as a skill.